10 years trapped on an outpost. Then the alien princess defied the galaxy to save him. The outpost stood like a forgotten monument, isolated on the edge of the galaxy. It had been years since anyone had visited, and now only its faint hum filled the silence. For 10 long years, Ethan had lived here alone. Once it had been a bustling station, filled with people and purpose. Now it was just an empty shell of metal and memory. Ethan had been abandoned. His ship had been sabotaged during a mission, and the rescue attempt failed. His supplies were dwindling, and his hope, like the stars overhead, had begun to fade. His mind often wandered to the faces of his crew, to the warmth of Earth that seemed so distant now. But that warmth was a memory, one that became harder to hold on to with each passing day. His routine was simple: check the systems, make sure the communication array was working, and wait. Wait for a signal, wait for someone to come. He had long given up on receiving help. After all, how could anyone find a speck of metal hidden among the vast expanse of space? Today was like any other day. He sat in front of the control panel, adjusting the settings on the communication array. The display flickered, showing the same empty blackness of space. There were no ships, no signals, just nothing. Ethan's fingers hovered over the console, the cool metal of the buttons familiar under his touch. But then something changed, a faint hum, a soft, almost imperceptible pulse through the speakers. Ethan's heart skipped. Was it a malfunction? He leaned forward, adjusting the volume. The hum grew louder, clearer. It wasn't interference. This was something real. He quickly scanned the readout. The signal was weak, but it was there, and it was coming from somewhere outside the outpost. His breath caught in his throat. Could it be a ship? Or was this just another false alarm? He had heard stories about distress signals from stranded ships, but this was the first time he'd received one on his own equipment. He adjusted the frequency, trying to lock onto the signal. His hands trembled, betraying the fear and excitement building inside him. Could this be the rescue he had longed for? The sound of another voice, someone who had come to find him? Or was it just the universe playing its cruel tricks again? The signal pulsed again, clearer this time. Ethan felt a surge of hope, a dangerous feeling after so many years of silence. He tried to reach out, but the frequency was too unstable. He couldn't get a clear read on the source. He needed to find the origin, he had to. The outpost was nearly deserted, but maybe, just maybe, there was someone else out there. He pulled on his suit and headed for the external scanner. The control room grew colder as he passed through the hallways, the hum of the outpost systems echoing in the distance. The lights flickered as he walked, a reminder of how much this place had deteriorated over the years. Outside, the stars seemed endless, cold and indifferent. But then his scanner beeped. A ship, an unknown ship, appeared on the radar. It wasn't a military vessel, nor was it a typical supply ship. It was something else, something new. It was moving toward the outpost slowly but surely. Ethan's heart raced. Was this a rescue mission? Or had someone finally come to end his suffering? He couldn't help but wonder. Was this the end of his isolation? Or was it the beginning of something far more dangerous? His fingers hovered over the controls again, his mind racing with possibilities. The outpost had not been designed to interact with visitors from outside. The chances of anyone being able to reach him were slim, but now it seemed like fate had decided to answer his prayers, one way or another. He could see the ship growing closer, its shape taking form against the backdrop of the endless stars. It was sleek, unlike anything he had ever seen, and as it neared, Ethan could feel the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. Something about the ship felt wrong. Not wrong in the sense of danger, but wrong in the sense that it didn't belong here. It was a presence in the stillness of space, a force he could not explain. As the ship hovered over the outpost, Ethan felt a mixture of excitement and fear, an overwhelming rush of emotion. Was this the rescue he had waited for? Or had the universe sent something far more complicated his way? The ship stopped, hanging in the silence like an ominous shadow, and a cold chill ran through Ethan's veins. The hum of the outpost systems was drowned out by the sound of his own heartbeat. This was it. This was the moment that could change everything. Ethan steadied his breath, watching the strange craft. He didn't know what would come next, but in that instant he felt alive again. The years of isolation, the endless waiting, all of it seemed to fade into the background. The only thing that mattered now was the ship, and the promise of whatever was about to happen. His fingers tightened around the controls, ready to respond, ready to face whatever came next. Ethan's eyes never left the strange ship hovering just above the outpost. It glowed with a strange, ethereal light, its sleek design cutting through the stars like a blade through the night. His heart thudded in his chest, each beat louder than the last. He had always known this moment would come. He just never imagined it would feel like this. Part of him was afraid to hope, but another part of him, the part that had survived this long in isolation, was desperate for something, anything, to pull him from this lonely existence. His fingers trembled as he adjusted the controls, attempting to establish a connection with the ship. The outpost's communication systems were rudimentary at best, but this signal, whatever it was, felt too significant to ignore. He opened a comm channel and sent a message. "This is Outpost 4511. Ethan's voice crackled over the static. "Is anyone there? Can you hear me? Please respond." For a moment there was nothing, just silence. His heart sank as he stared at the blinking screen, willing a response to come. He had spent years hoping for a rescue. But what if this was just another trick, a mirage in the vast emptiness of space? Then without warning, the comm system crackled to life. A voice, clear and authoritative yet strangely melodic, spoke. "This is the command vessel of the Cerinthian Empire. Stand by for further instructions." Ethan froze. His pulse quickened as he tried to process the words. The Cerinthian Empire. It sounded foreign, alien. His mind raced. He had heard rumors of distant galactic empires, but nothing like this. The voice was not human. Not even close. The words seemed to echo through the empty hallways of the outpost like a song sung by the stars themselves. Who are you?" Ethan stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. The voice responded, unfazed. "I am Princess Iridessa of the Cerinthian Empire. We've come for you, human." Do not resist. Ethan's mind whirled. A princess, an empire? It was too much to process in an instant. How could this be real? He had been abandoned on this forsaken outpost, left to die, yet here was this alien princess calling to him across the stars. Before he could form another question, a low hum filled the air, and a hatch on the ship opened. The princess, glowing with an otherworldly light, descended slowly from the craft, her eyes fixed on him. Her presence seemed to alter the very atmosphere around her. The air grew heavier, charged with something Ethan couldn't explain. She was tall, with pale skin that shimmered like the surface of a moonlit lake. Her hair was silver, flowing down her back like liquid light, and her eyes glowed with a soft violet hue. The moment she stepped onto the surface of the outpost, Ethan felt a surge of energy, something powerful, something ancient. "I came for you," she said, her voice soft but carrying an undeniable authority. "You've been alone for far too long." Ethan stood motionless, unsure whether to move closer or retreat. He had never encountered anything like her. The sight of an alien princess in front of him was like a dream, a hallucination. And yet here she was, standing on the same barren soil he had walked alone for a decade. She raised a hand and the air around them seemed to shift. The temperature around them rose slightly, a warmth that he hadn't felt in years. "You are human," she said, her eyes scanning him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. "You are not like the others we've encountered." "What do you mean?" Ethan asked, his voice barely a whisper. Who are the others?" Iridessa's gaze softened slightly, as if she were considering how much to reveal. "The ones who have come before you," she replied. "They were weak. They lacked the strength to survive. But you are different. You have survived here alone for 10 years. That is a feat that even the strongest of our empire would struggle to match." Ethan felt a strange mix of pride and confusion. He had never seen himself as anything special, just a man trying to survive. But here was this princess, a figure of immense power, praising him as if he were some sort of hero. "And now," Iridessa continued, "the galaxy is in turmoil. The Cerinthian Empire is in danger, and I am the only one who can save it. But I need you, human, to help me." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "Me? Help you? I'm just a stranded astronaut. I don't know anything about your empire or whatever it is you're asking." Iridessa stepped closer, her presence overwhelming. "You are stronger than you know. The empire needs someone who understands survival, who can fight in ways we have never seen. You are the key, Ethan." The way she said his name sent a shiver down his spine. She was speaking as if they had known each other for years, as if their fates were somehow intertwined. Ethan opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, the ground shook beneath him. The outpost's alarms blared and the comms flickered, sending a new message through the static. Warning, a robotic voice echoed. Incoming ships, multiple unidentified contacts. Ethan's heart raced. What is that? He demanded. What's happening? Iridessa's face tightened and her eyes gleamed with intensity. It's the Cerinthian fleet, she said. They've come to stop me from rescuing you, but they will not succeed. We must leave now. Before he could react, Iridessa's hand touched his shoulder, and a blinding light enveloped them both. The stars outside seemed to shift, and for the first time in 10 years, Ethan felt hope surge through his veins. He wasn't alone anymore. And whatever came next, he knew it would change everything. Ethan's mind raced as the world around him shifted. The princess's hand on his shoulder felt like fire, both comforting and terrifying at once. The moment they disappeared from the outpost, the silence of the cold, empty station seemed like a distant memory. The stars outside blurred as they were engulfed by a flash of light, and the feeling of weightlessness made his stomach lurch. He wanted to speak, to ask questions, but his voice failed him as he struggled to comprehend what was happening. When the light faded, they were no longer on the outpost. The stars had shifted, and the ground beneath them was soft, warm, and unfamiliar. The air smelled different, heavy with a sweet scent that reminded Ethan of rain after a long drought. His feet touched solid ground, but as he looked around, he saw nothing but vast green fields stretching under an alien sky. The sky itself seemed to shimmer, a vibrant hue of purples and pinks that flickered like the surface of a distant nebula. Ethan spun around, trying to orient himself. His heart pounded as he finally found his voice. Where are we? What is this place? Iridessa stood beside him, unshaken by the sudden change in surroundings. She looked at him with her glowing violet eyes, her expression unreadable. This is the heart of my world, she said softly. A place hidden from those who would exploit it. My people call it Lyris. It is where I grew up, where I learned the ways of my people. Lyris? Ethan repeated, still in disbelief. He tried to grasp the enormity of what she was saying. But I thought you said we had to leave. Wasn't your empire coming after us? Iridessa nodded, her gaze far away. They will come, Ethan. They will follow us here, no matter how far we run. My people are not pleased with my choices. They want me to stay within their laws, to never question the orders of the Cerinthian throne. But I cannot. I will not. Ethan could see the weight of her words in her eyes. Despite her regal appearance, there was something fragile about her, something deeply human. The thought hit him like a wave. She was risking everything for him. For a stranded human with no real place in this vast galaxy. Why me? Ethan asked, his voice low, still trying to understand why she had come for him specifically. Why did you choose me? Iridessa's gaze softened and she took a step closer. I see something in you. Something your kind possesses that my people lack: resilience. Strength in the face of overwhelming odds. You survived alone for so long. You learned how to fight, how to endure when the world gave you no reason to. My empire, my people. She paused, the words heavy on her tongue. We have forgotten what it means to survive. To fight for something greater than ourselves. Ethan felt a pang of empathy. Her struggle was familiar. She was fighting against her own people, her own family, for something she believed in. It was a fight he understood. One he had been fighting for 10 years, albeit alone and without the grandeur of an empire at stake. Before he could respond, the ground shook again. The vibrant sky above them darkened as distant ships appeared, slowly descending from the heavens like vultures circling their prey. Ethan's pulse quickened as he recognized the craft, the sleek, menacing ships that had been closing in on the outpost. Iridessa's eyes narrowed as she looked up, her hand instinctively reaching for the weapon at her side. We don't have much time, she said, her voice now firm and commanding. They will land any moment. You must come with me. There is a ship ready for us. Ethan's heart raced. Where will we go? What will happen if we're caught? Iridessa's expression hardened. If we are caught, I will die. And so will you. But if we manage to escape, we will have a chance. A chance to do what neither of us could do alone. Ethan didn't have time to ask questions. The ships were almost on top of them. A low rumble filled the air as the ground beneath their feet trembled once again. Iridessa moved with purpose, taking him by the arm and leading him toward the edge of the field. There, hidden in the shadows of a nearby mountain range, was a sleek vessel, a ship that seemed to hum with life. As they approached, the ship's engines flared to life, sending a powerful blast of air in all directions. Ethan had never seen anything like it. Its design was both elegant and intimidating. A strange blend of organic curves and sharp, angular lines that made it seem as though it had grown from the very ground beneath them. "Get inside," Iridessa ordered, and Ethan didn't hesitate. As he stepped onto the ship, he felt the air shift again, the sensation of movement taking hold. The engines roared to life, and within moments they were rising into the sky, leaving the surface of Lyris behind. The view outside was breathtaking. The green fields of Lyris faded into the distance, replaced by the swirling depths of space. Ethan looked out of the ship's observation window, mesmerized by the beauty of the galaxy. But his mind was clouded with questions. What was he doing here? Why had she chosen him? And what was the true nature of the threat they were facing? Iridessa stood beside him, her posture straight and regal, but there was an unmistakable tension in her eyes. "We are not safe yet," she said softly. "The Empire will stop at nothing to find me, to destroy anyone who dares to defy them." Ethan turned to her, the weight of her words sinking in. "Then why risk it?" he asked, his voice filled with a mix of awe and concern. "Why risk everything for me?" Iridessa's gaze softened, and for a moment he saw something deeper in her eyes, a flicker of vulnerability. "Because you are the one person who understands what it means to fight. To survive. We are not so different, you and I." As the ship hurtled through the stars, Ethan realized just how much he had changed in these past few days. He had gone from a lonely astronaut, stranded on a forgotten outpost, to an unwilling participant in a galactic struggle that could shape the future of an entire empire. And now, with Iridessa by his side, he had to decide if he was ready to embrace his role in this fight, to fight for survival, to fight for a future that none of them could predict. Ethan's heart raced as the ship sliced through the cosmos, leaving behind the peaceful fields of Lyris. The hum of the engines was the only sound in the cabin, but the silence between him and Iridessa was palpable, a tension that neither of them had broken. Outside the window, stars and distant planets twinkled, indifferent to the chaos that was unfolding far beyond their reach. He turned his gaze to the princess beside him, who seemed lost in thought, her eyes distant as she stared at the vast expanse of space. "We're not safe," Iridessa murmured, her voice a whisper against the hum of the ship. She didn't look at him, but Ethan could hear the weight of her words. "Even now my people are hunting us. They won't stop until we're found." Ethan swallowed hard, the gravity of their situation sinking in. They had barely escaped the planet, and yet the danger seemed to be intensifying with every passing moment. The Cerinthian fleet was out there somewhere in the darkness waiting to strike. They couldn't hide forever. "Why did you defy them?" Ethan asked, his voice low but urgent. "Why risk everything? Your title, your people, your life." Iridessa finally turned to him, her violet eyes meeting his with a quiet intensity. "Because it was the right thing to do," she said simply. "My people have become corrupted by power, obsessed with conquest and control. They've forgotten what it means to live with honor. I will not stand by and watch them destroy everything I believe in." Ethan could see the fire in her eyes, a fire that burned with a conviction he could understand. She was fighting not just for herself but for a future she believed in, a future where her people could change. It was a future Ethan hadn't even known he'd wanted until now. He nodded, the weight of his own feelings beginning to settle in his chest. He wasn't just an observer in this conflict anymore. He was a part of it. Whether he liked it or not, he was caught in the middle of a galactic struggle that could alter the course of history. And just like Iridessa, he couldn't turn back. Suddenly the ship jolted, throwing them both off balance. The warning lights blared to life, and the ship's systems began to hum with frantic urgency. Ethan gripped the console beside him as the craft shuddered under the impact. "What's happening?" he asked, his voice rising with the panic he felt surging through his veins. Iridessa's face hardened, and she gripped the control panel in front of her, her fingers moving swiftly over the instruments. "They've found us," she said, her voice tight. "The fleet is closing in." A moment later, the ship's communications crackled to life. A cold mechanical voice echoed through the cabin. "Princess Iridessa, you are ordered to surrender immediately. Return to the Empire and face justice for your treason. Failure to comply will result in your destruction." Ethan's stomach churned. He had heard of military forces capable of wiping out entire planets, But hearing the coldness in the voice on the comms made it all too real. The Cerinthian Empire was not a force to be trifled with. Their ships were fast, their weapons lethal. Iridessa's eyes narrowed as she silenced the comms. "I will not surrender," she said, her voice firm with defiance. "But neither will I die here." Ethan didn't know what to say. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't even a fighter. He had only survived by luck, by living through the endless solitude of the outpost. But now, as the princess beside him prepared for the battle ahead, he realized something. He couldn't let her face this alone. "What can I do?" he asked, his voice steady despite the storm of fear raging inside him. "How can I help?" Iridessa turned to him. Her face softened with a mixture of surprise and admiration. "You've already helped by being here, by standing with me." Her voice softened. "But if we're going to survive this, we need to outrun them. We need to reach the hidden systems where they can't track us. But we won't make it if they're on our tail." Ethan's mind raced. The hidden systems. He had heard rumors of places in the galaxy that even the most advanced fleets couldn't follow. But they were nothing more than myths, stories passed among the few who knew of their existence. If they were real, they were their only hope. "Where are these hidden systems?" Ethan asked, desperate for any plan that would give them a chance to escape. Iridessa's eyes flickered with something unreadable. "I know the way," she said, her voice unwavering. "But we'll need to break through their blockade first, and that won't be easy." Before Ethan could respond, the ship jolted again, even harder this time. The alarms blared once more as Iridessa's fingers danced over the controls. She turned to Ethan with a look of fierce determination. "Get ready," she said. "We're going to outrun them." The ship veered sharply to the left, sending Ethan crashing against his seat. He held on, gripping the armrests as the stars outside twisted in a chaotic blur. The engines roared to life, and the ship shot forward, faster than Ethan had ever imagined possible. He glanced at Iridessa, who was focused entirely on the controls, her eyes narrowed with concentration. She was a leader, a fighter, and she was willing to risk everything to survive. Ethan had never been part of something so important, so high stakes. But in that moment, he realized that he was no longer just a stranded astronaut. He was part of something greater, something that could change the fate of an entire galaxy. The ship tore through the void, the pursuing Cerinthian fleet gaining ground. Ethan could feel the heat of the battle building, the pressure mounting with every passing second. They were close now, close to the hidden systems Iridessa had spoken of, where they could vanish from the Empire's grasp. But would they make it in time? As the ship hurtled through space, Ethan's mind raced. He had no idea what the future held. But as long as he was with Iridessa, as long as he was fighting beside her, he knew one thing for sure. He would do whatever it took to survive. Together, they would face whatever came next. The fate of both their worlds hung in the balance. The ship cut through the fabric of space like a knife through air, its engines a constant hum that reverberated through Ethan's chest. The stars outside were mere streaks of light, an endless blur as the craft rocketed forward. Iridessa's face remained resolute, her eyes locked onto the screen in front of her, her hands steady on the controls. Despite the chaos and the danger they faced, she remained the picture of calm. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as he glanced at the radar. The Cerinthian fleet was closing in fast. The enemy ships, sleek and imposing, were far too close for comfort. They were on their tail, relentless and determined. Even with all the speed and maneuvering the ship had, it wasn't going to be enough to outrun them for long. "Princess," Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper, "we won't be able to outrun them forever. We need to fight." Iridessa's violet eyes flickered toward him, her expression unreadable. She didn't seem surprised by his words. "I knew you would say that," she said softly, her tone sharp with a hint of something like admiration. "But we can't fight them head-on, not yet." "But we can't keep running either," Ethan pressed, his anxiety building. "We need to make a stand. If they catch us—" "I know," Iridessa interrupted, her voice suddenly filled with steel. But there's more at stake here than just our lives. The galaxy needs to know that we're not going to bow down, not anymore. Ethan felt a rush of understanding. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for the future of her people, her empire. And if he stayed by her side, he was a part of that fight. He wasn't just a survivor anymore. He was becoming something more. He swallowed hard, staring out at the stars. The ship was moving too fast for him to even grasp their exact location, but he knew they were getting close to their goal. Iridessa had mentioned the hidden systems, a place where the Empire could not follow. But whether it was a myth or reality, Ethan couldn't say. They had no choice but to trust in her knowledge and her resolve. The ship's warning lights flashed again. Another impact. The Cerinthian fleet was closing in and the shields were taking a beating. Iridessa's face remained unflinching, but Ethan could see the strain in the way she gripped the controls. She was pushing the ship to its limits. "We're almost there," she said, her voice low but determined. "Hold on." Ethan held on tightly, bracing himself for whatever came next. His mind raced. What would they find in these hidden systems? Would it be a sanctuary, or would they be walking straight into the jaws of the Empire? Iridessa had seemed certain, but no plan was ever without risk. The stakes were impossibly high, and every moment that passed felt like an eternity. As the ship zoomed closer to the unknown, Ethan's thoughts turned to what had brought him here in the first place. 10 years. 10 long years on that forsaken outpost. A lifetime in isolation. He had never imagined that his survival would lead to this, fighting side by side with a princess of an alien empire against the very forces that sought to control the galaxy. He had been nothing more than a broken astronaut when she found him. But now he was a part of something bigger, something that could change everything. A warning beeped on the console, pulling him back to the present. They were within range of the hidden systems. The radar showed a dark void ahead, a place where the stars seemed to fade away, where no ships had ever ventured. Iridessa's fingers flew over the controls and the ship lurched forward, diving into the darkness. For a moment there was nothing but the void, a swirling mass of shadows. Then, the stars reappeared. But they weren't the same. The space around them was distorted, stretched, like the fabric of reality was bending under the strain. Ethan gasped as he realized what he was seeing. This was it. The hidden systems. The place no one had been able to find until now. "This is where the Empire's reach ends," Iridessa said, her voice filled with awe. "We're safe here, at least for now." Ethan could barely comprehend what he was seeing. The stars twinkled in strange patterns like they were part of a grand design that no one had ever fully understood. But there was no time to linger on the beauty of it all. The Cerinthian fleet was still close behind, their ship's weapons lighting up the distance. Iridessa's eyes were sharp as she turned back to the controls. "We need to make sure they can't follow us," she said, her tone unyielding. "If we're going to survive this, we need to cut off their pursuit." Ethan nodded, his pulse quickening again. "What do we do?" Iridessa's lips curved into a determined smile. "We fight, but we do it on our terms." She activated the ship's weapon systems, and the ship shuddered as powerful energy beams shot out, striking the enemy fleet. The Cerinthian ships faltered for a moment, their engines flickering as they tried to regain control. It was a small victory, but it was enough to buy them some time. "They'll be back," Iridessa said, her gaze intense. "We can't afford to wait around. We need to find allies, gather strength. This is just the beginning." The ship sped deeper into the hidden systems, a place of refuge that could be their salvation or their downfall. The stars outside seemed to blur into a vast, cosmic sea, endless and full of potential, but the danger wasn't over. The galaxy's wrath still loomed, and the battle for survival was far from won. Ethan glanced at Iridessa, his heart heavy with the knowledge of how far they had come. They had defied the galaxy together, and now they had no choice but to continue this fight. The stakes were higher than ever, but as long as they stood side by side, Ethan knew they had a chance. He wasn't just a survivor anymore. He was a part of something much larger than himself, and together, they would fight for a future they could not yet see.